So in the Packers' first game of the season, they lose to the Philadelphia Eagles 34-29. And first off, we have to touch on the injury to Jordan Love at the end because it just happened. Can't exactly tell what was injured. Couldn't tell if it was his knee, his leg, what it was, but he goes down and he looked like he was in a ton of pain. He was able to walk off the field. He was hobbling a little bit. And so for the Packers' entire season, it comes down to Jordan Love and how healthy he is. And so, prayers for Jordan Love that he's healthy and he'll be ready to come back soon. A very unfortunate way for the game to end there with Malik Willis having to come in. Packers down by 5, basically needed a Hail Mary, and Malik Willis comes in, recently came into Green Bay, gets sacked. So a tough way to go out, and obviously right now the biggest factor is Jordan Love and his health, and I hope he's okay. And I guess we'll find out soon the extent of whatever happened to him on that play. And so now to touch on this entire game, it was a pretty entertaining game. It was a very sloppy game. A ton of penalties, a ton of mistakes. It did look like two teams who, were playing their first game in a long time. Jordan Love looks pretty rusty lots of the day. Made a lot of poor decisions. Nearly threw a pick six. It was dropped by the Eagles. Threw an interception. Another one almost got picked off. And so I don't think it was Jordan Love's best day. He goes 17 of 34, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 83 passer rating. And he had a few nice plays. It just looked like, he was having to knock the rust off. He wasn't making the best decisions lots of the time. But he did have some really nice plays, especially on that final drive when the Packers had, 20 or so seconds to score. That ball to Jayden Reed, I think he was rolling out to the left, throws a beautiful ball. Jayden Reed, an even better catch. We know that Jordan Love is special, has special abilities, and I think that just being in his first game, he was having to get reacclimated to the game, and some of his decision-making was not great in this game overall, but he still had some nice plays through 2 touchdown passes, one to Jayden Reed and one to Christian Watson. And honestly, I think the biggest factor of this game was you look at the turnover battle. The Packers had 3 forced turnovers, 2 interceptions, one, of course, by Xavier McKinney, the first drive of the game. I was pumped when I saw that. I thought that, that this defense was going to take us to a Super Bowl after watching that first series. Was I reacting too quickly? Maybe. But at the same time, waiting all season, and then you see that happen. Xavier McKinney flying down, getting that interception. It was like, this is incredible. Jeff Hafley's here. Xavier McKinney, what could be better? And then the next series, the Eagles fumble it. And so it was a perfect start for the Packers defense. And then things just sort of went south. Jaire gets another pick. And the point I'm trying to make here is the Packers had 3 forced turnovers, and they only turned the ball over once. So typically, when you're +2 in turnover margin, I would say most times that team wins the game. And here the Packers lose by 5. Reason being, they were not able to convert in the red zone. And when they force those turnovers, they weren't able to, get a lot of touchdowns out of them. So Packers went 1 for 4 in the red zone. That was, I'd say, the biggest difference maker for whatever reason. They could not convert. Eagles played really well in the red zone. The Eagles, on the other hand, converted 3 of their red zone drives out of 6. And so I think that was the biggest factor is if the Packers would have, scored another touchdown, scored 2 touchdowns in the red zone there, gotten some more points off of turnovers, which the defense did provide, then this is a different game. And so the Packers, I think, are going to clean that up. It is the first game of the season, and I think lots of times what you see week 1, the team adapts, figures things out, figure out what went wrong. And now if we look at the Jeff Hafley defense, all offseason long, we've been focusing on it. And I talked about in the past, sometime in a video here in the past couple weeks, that, when you're looking forward to a season and you have a new change, like Jeff Hafley coming in, you look at all the positives, and with a guy who doesn't really have experience or doesn't have experience in the NFL as a defensive coordinator, all you can really look at is his time in college and what he did and what his players say, what the Packers players were saying all offseason long. And they all sounded very excited about this new scheme, just the aggressive style, the way that lots of these defensive linemen would be really just be able to be in attack mode. And tonight, the Packers defense allowed 34 points. And if we look back to last season, I was looking at it during the game because I was curious. The Packers' worst defensive performance last year, they allowed 34 points. I think it may have happened twice, but 34 was the most points allowed by the Joe Barry-led Packers defense last season. And in Jeff Hafley's first game, the Packers allow 34 points. So I wouldn't say it was a great performance by the defense. Now, there were the Packers did get 3 turnovers. The Eagles turned the ball over 3 times, as I already discussed. And so, typically, as I said, if you're +2 in turnover margin, you should win the game. And so I do have to give the Packers props there. I do think that the 2 interceptions were just really bad decisions by Jalen Hurts. He was not really, making the wisest decision there. The guys weren't really open. And so on the one hand, that's great to see the Packers force some turnovers, which last year they had 7 interceptions, and they already have 2. So that's a good sign that the Packers are forcing turnovers, and hopefully that continues. But if we look, 34 points, I mean, that's too many. You look at Jalen Hurts in this game, his final stat line. He goes 20 of 34, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, an 80.3 passer rating. And for the most part, I mean, Jalen Hurts had a somewhat solid day, had some good, had some bad. I would say somewhat inconsistent, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And there were a few big plays. The one, I think it was a 67-yard touchdown to A.J. Brown. I think Jair was on him, just got completely beat. And, when you look at this Jeff Hafley defense, because they are so aggressive, I think it does lead you to be a little bit weaker, and you are going to see, I would say, probably more explosive plays, more explosive touchdowns than you probably would have seen against Joe Barry, who, like to really sort of sit back and keep things in front of him. And so I think when you look at the overall performance here of this defense, for the most part, stopping the run, that was one thing I was curious about. Because for years and years, this Packers defense has been consistently one of the worst in the NFL when it comes to stopping the run. I think they're around 28th in rush yards allowed per game last year. And for the most part tonight, outside of, I would say, the final drive or two, this Packers run defense played really well. Jalen Hurts really didn't really have too much room to run, wasn't really able to escape the pocket. And if you remember a couple of years back, the Eagles ran the ball for 363 yards against the Packers defense. They couldn't stop anything all day long. Tonight, I would say that was one positive from this Packers defense. All in all, 38 carries for 144 yards, 3.8 yards a carry for the Eagles. Saquon Barkley had a pretty big day. The Packers, I think, stopped him a good amount early in the game. Not when it comes to touchdowns, but just his yards per carry. He started to get going later in the game. 24 carries, 109 yards, 4.5 yards a carry. Hurts, 13 carries, 33 yards, 2.5 yards a carry. And, of course, Barkley had 2 rushing touchdowns. So, all in all, run defense, pretty solid most of the day. The last couple drives, not great. Jalen Hurts started breaking away for some. Saquon Barkley was able to, do a little bit more later in the game. And so, all in all, the defense needs to make improvements. And there was just so many missed tackles. I'm going to see if I can find this stat right now as I'm talking to you. There were so many missed tackles. One of those first touchdown runs by Saquon Barkley, I think it was Quay was coming to try to fill the hole. Saquon completely jukes him out. Quay doesn't get him, and because of that, there was no one else in that hole. He scores a touchdown, and there was just, so many missed tackles. I'm not finding the stat right now. I'll probably find it later, but if you watch that game, you saw just how many times the Packers whiffed, and maybe it's because, in your first game of the season, these guys in training camp, while they're tackling a little bit, it's not like they're full on going full go like they will in a regular season game. And so I don't know if it's just comes down to getting acclimated to the season and starting to actually tackle people again. Maybe it'll improve because, it's your first game and you're trying to, get things figured out. That needs to improve. And penalties, it felt like there were a billion penalties tonight. Let's see, 10 penalties by the Packers for 71 yards. Some questionable ones near the end, like that. Did they call pass interference or something? Or they called something on Jair on A.J. Brown, which I don't think was a great call. But there were a lot of holding penalties, other sloppy penalties, 10 penalties, 71 yards for the Packers, 7 penalties, 57 yards for the Eagles, and everyone was slipping everywhere. I think it got better the second half. I'm guessing that's because the players changed the shoes they had on, I'm guessing, different cleats. But that field surface, guys were slipping all over the place. That was a very big factor earlier in the game. Jordan Love was, taking some Some dropbacks slipping around a little out there. Not great. And so all in all, this was a pretty evenly matched game, I would say, today. Some bad decisions by Jordan Love. Some bad decisions by Jalen Hurts. The Packers outgained the Eagles by 4 yards. Packers had 414 yards. Eagles had 410 yards. Each of them had 11 total drives. Eagles had 74 plays. The Packers 58 plays. And the Packers did have more yards per play. 7.1 to the Eagles, 5.5. And so it was two offenses moving the ball consistently. 400 plus yards. So both defenses had a pretty bad day today. And I feel like for myself, I'd prefer to watch, offenses go off than defenses dominate and, you have a 10-7 type game. But if the Packers, want to be competitive, I mean, they need to improve on defense, figure some things out there, see, make some more tackles, not miss as many tackles, and try to figure out, what they can do and how they can shift things going forward. So, tough game, tough loss there near the end. The Packers, held them to a field goal, which was good. Didn't give them much time to come back. And on that final drive, I mean, the Eagles were just converting first down after first down. You're sitting there on the couch just like, come on, can we get like one stop to give Jordan Love an opportunity? And luckily they did at the end. I think it was a little too late. If they would have given Love maybe a minute or two, that could have been different, not holding to any points, get him to punt. Maybe that's different. And, finally, we'll touch on Brayden Narveson, who I think he went 3 for 4. He had one 43-yarder, missed that one, but goes 3 of 4. I would say it was a pretty solid day. He's a rookie. His first game of the year, 75%, 2 of 2 on extra points. I think I'm satisfied with what he did. He missed one field goal, but he is young. I'm willing to give him some, grace in that area. So all in all, a fine day from Brayden Narveson in his first day. So that's pretty much my breakdown. I'll be out with more videos this week to sort of touch on more detail and things like that. And we'll see what happens with Jordan Love, and really hoping and praying that he's going to be okay and that he'll be feeling good soon. So we'll keep an eye on all that. If you guys want more Packers content, feel free to follow me on Twitter /X LukeBeller3. And if you want to stay up to date here on this YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on the post notifications so you don't miss any Packers content. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.